but later became more famous as prophets.
Edgar Cayce's amazing destiny takes root in 1877 near Hopkinsville, a small town of tobacco farmers in rural Kentucky.
Edgar Cayce's family was typical of middle-class American rural people at the turn of the 20th century. They made their living primarily from the production of dark tobacco, wheat and corn and livestock. They were church-going people on Sunday, a straightforward, dignified people, the men of whom were certainly given to the heavy use of tobacco and occasional strong drink.
Casey was a seriously odd child. He was not the kind of child you would wish on any two parents.
As a child, he was surprised to discover that other children didn't have the same sort of experiences that he had.
As a boy, Edgar often had visions as he sat in the woods reading his Bible. After his grandfather drowned on the farm pond, young Casey reported seeing him regularly around the farm. Little Edgar is also said to have had the uncanny ability to memorize entire books by sleeping on them.
Had he been born in different circumstances, not a little rural community, Edgar could very easily have been, sold as a circus act. He was completely surrounded by people who loved him, people who protected him.
His most amazing talent, which earned him the name Sleeping Prophet, would surface years later when Casey was in his early 20s. While working as an insurance salesman, he developed a severe case of laryngitis. Unable to speak, Casey took a job as a photographer. In the darkroom, he wouldn't be required to talk much, but as his condition persisted, he finally decided to seek help.
At that time, Edgar had had some friendship association with Dr. Al Lane, a homeopathic physician. And Dr. Lane suggested to young Edgar, why not self-impose hypnosis?
What happened next would set Casey's destiny in motion.
It was on the 30th of March, 1901, in a two-story brick house on West 7th Street in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, that Edgar Cayce lay upon a couch in a contemplative and meditative situation and self-imposed hypnosis. And then, before his parents and maybe a few others in the room, astounded everyone by describing what was wrong with his throat and prescribing treatment for it. The first reading, March 30th, 1901.
In his sleep, Casey had spoken in a clear voice and described in detail his ailment and the cure. Soon, doctors and patients were coming from far and wide to be diagnosed and cured by the man with the X-ray eyes.
One of the amazing things about Edgar Cayce's health readings is the piercing nature of his vision into an individual's body. He would read the body as though he were an X-ray machine. And the terminology that he used was quite medical. It's quite amazing.
In 1905, Casey told surgeons how to fix the badly broken leg of a local man, George Dalton, by inserting a nail into the break.
The doctors had said Dalton would never walk again. He did. To our knowledge, that was the first time in medical history of the use of a nail.
And in the summer of 1911, when doctors told Casey his own wife Gertrude would surely die of a severe case of tuberculosis, she followed his treatment and quickly recovered. Casey's fame as a healer grew fast. In the New York Times, doctors raved about Casey.
His psychologic terms would do credit to any professor of nervous anatomy. While in his normal state, he is an illiterate man, especially along the lines of medicine, surgery, or pharmacy, of which he knows nothing.
Casey's predictions were amazing in their detail, but his process was simple enough.
It wasn't anything mysterious. He would simply lie down on a couch. He would, if he had a tie or collar on, he'd loosen his collar, loosen his shoelaces, and just cross his hands over his stomach and just relax.
There was a window, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, when his eyes began to flutter. And it was at that moment that you could put a question to Edgar Cayce.
All he had to know was the name of the person the reading was for and where he was at the time of the reading. Could be in California or Kalamazoo, it didn't matter.
Oddly, whether he gave a diagnosis, prescribed a cure, or predicted the future, Casey forgot it all as soon as his eyes opened.
He didn't remember anything. He didn't remember anything that he said at the reading.
And soon, some clients caught on.
People would slip in a question about who's going to win a horse race or what's going to happen in the stock market, and he would answer them, much to their profit.
As clients got rich on his predictions, Casey suffered from unexplainable migraine headaches.
Where there were selfish purposes involved, it was as if the radar screen got fuzzy. He couldn't tune in as clearly or as accurately.
It made him ill or made him upset stomach. He just said, I'm through. I'm not doing this anymore.
In 1912, with his young wife Gertrude and his son Hugh Lynn in tow, a disillusioned Casey left Hopkinsville and the predictions behind him and moved to Selma, Alabama, where he went back to work as a photographer.
He continued that work until my brother dropped a match in a partially filled can of flashlight powder, and he burned his face terribly. And all the doctors said, well, he'll never see again, and my brother asked my father for a reading.
2 weeks later, after following his father's recommendations, Hugh Lynn's eye was as good as new.
Dad realized that he could help people again, and that he thought that maybe that's what he ought to do. But he made it a rule that Mother would be the one who asked the questions, so nothing could happen like happened in Hopkinsville.
But Casey was about to discover new, amazing abilities, and his spine-chilling visions were about to turn him into the greatest prophet of the 20th century.